Our digital frame started showing his weekend. The digital frame over our credenza used to be harmless. It was a little museum for the soft parts of our life. Maya blowing flour at the camera on a Sunday, my niece in a strawberry dress. The porch we pretended we'd fix when the weather got adult enough to believe us. It shuffled those scenes like a patient dealer, never getting bored, never announcing itself. It was an appliance that understood the assignment. Keep moving. Don't editorialize. On a Thursday that had already failed to become anything larger than errands, the frame decided to curate. I was making coffee and watching the drip like it owed me a confession when the wall brightened. A photo I didn't recognize slid into the house. A lake I'd never seen shrugged light at a wooden dock. The caption in the corner, pulled from the cloud by some algorithm that thinks metadata is friendship, read, as if politely introducing itself. Leela's phone, Pine Ridge. Leela is my girlfriend. Her phone is not my business unless it volunteers. Our frame is connected to a shared album we've both fed without thinking. Apparently her settings had decided generosity was a default. The next picture glided in. 2 mugs on a porch rail, steam turning the air into a suggestion. Then another. A pair of boots I didn't own by a door I'd never open. Then the one that revised my posture, a hand someone else's, half in frame, tanned and careless, holding up a fish like a joke. Leela's knee, familiar as a blueprint, visible at the edge, her laugh in the tilt of it, a laugh I'd learned to read like weather. I watched 3 more photos arrive as if the frame was sure of my attention now and didn't mind telling a story. Not sex, not scandal you could print. Just scenes that knew what they were doing. Her braid unraveling in a mirror I hadn't installed. A board game with tiles we never bought. A photo from behind of 2 shadows touching at the elbows in a way that meant yes, in every language I've ever learned by accident. I took my coffee to the credenza and stood there like a tourist at a crime scene. The frame obliged. The next slide flickered into a selfie. Leela, cheeks pinked by cold or something more chemical, a man beside her with a smile that believed in its own decency. I recognized him from rap parties and hallways, Ronan from Color, the sort of person people describe as steady when they plan to steal him for deadlines. His jaw had that morally persuasive angle some men are born with. He didn't touch her in the frame, not exactly. His shoulder drifted toward hers like a magnet that had been patient a long time. I could have called her. I could have unplugged the frame and told the wall to mind its manners. Instead, I did the simple, humiliating adult thing. I sat on the couch and watched my furniture curate someone else's weekend until I understood the edges. Then I poured another coffee. I set the mug down, and not gently. The frame showed us a sunset as if it were the ending I needed. Leela had left at 6 with the bag she uses when she travels for one night and tells herself it counts as moderation. The note on the table said what notes say. Client dinner, late, don't wait. I had waited anyway in the empty way where you pretend you're doing something else. By 11, she texted, still out, too loud, love you. I wrote back a thumbs up because I was not ready to audition for a larger role. The frame kept working, proof without soundtrack. Leela on a bench I hadn't bored her with yet, a book I didn't buy flipped open to a page we'd never read together. Ronan in a flannel that had no idea it was evidence. When the door finally clicked at 1 in the morning, the frame showed a black square, its work ethic finished. Leela came in quiet and careful, keys singing soft apology. She kissed the top of my head and smelled like snow that had learned to flirt. How was dinner? I asked, because sometimes civility is the last useful trick. Loud, she said, kicking off boots I recognized as ours. You. The frame had an opinion, I said, and let it be the first honest sentence of the night. She stood still, then turned to the wall like a person watching a friend betray her by forgetting to whisper. The dock came back on as if the device wanted to participate. Leela looked at it, and I watched her face as it went through the math only she knew the variables for. "Okay," she said, and the word wasn't resignation or defiance. It was someone choosing a heavy box and lifting with her legs. "Pine Ridge," I said. "Nice light." She laughed once, that humiliating noise humans make when their bodies remember comedy before their hearts. "It was," she said. She didn't reach for the remote. She didn't perform. She leaned against the credenza like furniture could help. "Ronan," I said, keeping my voice level because it was all I could control. "From Color." She nodded. We finished a cut. We celebrated staying to the end. She didn't dress it up with nouns that pretend to be verbs. He invited me to see daylight where nobody needs us. I went. "I am sorry." "Do you love him?" I asked, the question that's both a tool and a wound. "I don't know," she said, and I believed her, which hurt more than the alternative. "I loved not being an assignment. I loved you in the background of everything like a constant I don't have to earn. I didn't appreciate the math." We stood like that, two competent people in a room that had not consented to be a courtroom. The frame, as if it suddenly understood taste, went asleep. "A month," I said. "Pause, you at Maya's, me at Liam's, ugly chairs, honest sentences. No cabins, no frames. Sundays in fluorescent places with bad coffee where we answer two questions we won't enjoy." "Which questions?" she asked softly, because even now she likes the comfort of numbered things. "When did you want to run? When did you want to stay?" "Yes," she said. "Immediate." That more than the photos made me feel like the floor had opinions. We packed enough to make the bed look honest. She took the black hoodie that makes her small enough to shelter and the dress that makes doorways have thoughts. I took the plant. We still hadn't named it, and the blanket we pretend is a rug when guests are charming enough to forgive us. At the door, she reached for my face and stopped halfway like a person checking wind direction. "Can I?" "You can kiss me," I said, because there are still things I know how to grant. As a fact, not a plan. We kissed slow. Both of us remembered the choreography without lying to ourselves about what we were doing. My hand slid under her shirt and found the warmth at the curve of her back. Her breath did that private double in my ear that has been our grammar for good news. We stopped because we told ourselves to. You can set a fire to keep a house warm. You can also keep a candle for light and decide the rest survives on purpose. Liam's couch has hosted men who recently discovered that objects can be witnesses. He handed me beer and a remote and the kind of silence that makes a dent you fall into, and then climb out of because the show we didn't choose is surprisingly good. I slept a little. I didn't dream. At noon the next day, a number I didn't recognize texted with the courtesy of a thief returning a wallet for applause. "This is Ronan. If you want to see the person and not the porch, I'll be at the lopsided bench by the canal at 3. If not, I will step out of the frame and stay out." He was there, of course, because men like him believe in arrivals. He sat already, coat open to the weather, a coffee cooling on the slat beside him like he didn't plan to drink anything he hadn't earned. He didn't offer a hand, points for that. "I'm stepping back," he said before I could decide how to punish his voice. "Not to make a scene of my restraint. I'm switching projects. I told her I want to be the person who doesn't make good women choose performance over peace." "You sound practiced," I said. He smiled without showing his teeth. "I get paid for being presentable." We watched a gull rehearse theft from a child with a pastry, and both lost the thread for a blessed second. "No cameo," I said, when the gull had chosen decency against type. No cameo, he said, and maybe he meant it. I took what I could use and left. Therapy was a room that refused to be photogenic. Mismatched chairs, a rug with a stain shaped like Sicily, the clean light of a window that doesn't care about the weather you bring. The therapist asked us for verbs that hold in sunlight. I wanted to be admired without doing anything admirable, Leela said. I wanted to be the kind of man who never needs proof, I said, which is another way to say I was lazy. We said smaller things. Who keeps the receipts? Who notices when the spices migrate? Who turns off the lamp like it's a promise? We left with our faces unphotographable and our spines angry in that useful way. In week 2, I met Myra in a grocery aisle holding 2 cartons of eggs like she was choosing which future to crack. We'd nodded at each other for months, the kind of neighbors who could testify to the fact that you have a dog without knowing its name. She lifted a carton toward me and asked, "Which ones won't betray me?" I said, "The ones that haven't learned the internet," and we laughed in the clean, daylight way that makes choosing easier. We walked together because the weather was practicing kindness. She told me about a marriage that died from the useful parasite of performance. I told her about a frame that had developed a curatorial impulse. At the corner where the streetlight dilutes everyone equally, we kissed once, the kind of kiss you can keep. Her hand found my shoulder with a permission that didn't tick clocks. My mouth learned the respectful outline of her lower lip. We stopped with the ridiculous pride of people who intend to be good at life, and not just at being interesting. "Choose ordinary," she said. "It will feed you better than drama." On Sundays, Leela and I found the worst-lit coffee shop and sat in chairs designed by sadists and answered the 2 questions. She wanted to run when the edit asked for one more pass with one less sleep. She wanted to stay when she pictured us old and tyrannically gentle about which plant needs a different window. I wanted to run when I saw a porch on a calendar page, and my stomach rehearsed a humiliation that wasn't scheduled. I wanted to stay when I imagined her hand under my shirt in the kitchen, the quiet ownership you can't export. The frame at home behaved. I had unplugged it the night she left and placed a plant where its attention used to be. The plant leaned toward light without irony. I found it comforting, how predictable that felt. On day 25, my phone buzzed with an automatic memory the cloud insists on pulling out of our pockets. On this day, it said, "Here's you and Leela at the lake." It was the lake near her mother's place, the one where I had put a ring in my sock and then lost the sock and then found it 3 hours later behind a chair, while the whole family pretended not to know I was someone worth betting on. We hadn't got engaged that summer. We had kept applying to each other and getting approved. On day 30, Leela came back with a bag and a face that had retired from auditions. We made tea. We let the kitchen's ugly light be the only witness. We let the plant lean. "Rebuild," she said. "Rebuild," I said. "Slow, no monuments. We date each other like this place is new and fragile. If something wants to be a photograph, we ask why. If something wants to be a conversation, we sit down." We kissed like a handshake and then like a home we recognized. In the bedroom, we undressed tidily like 2 people who expect to see this room again in the morning. My mouth found the warm strip of her waist. Her breath answered at my ear. We kept it day safe, honest, greedy in the way that doesn't steal from tomorrow. We stopped because we wanted the evening to be able to look us in the eye. We wrote rules on an index card and taped it behind the frame before we plugged it back in. Report temptation like weather. No rooms without windows. No stories that require a soundtrack to behave. If a device volunteers to be a witness, we make it a mirror instead. If we can't, we turn it off. Ronan texted one final sentence like a receipt. No cameo. I wrote back none. Then I watched the words sit there and decide not to ask for a tip. Myra sent a photo of a bench at noon, the caption small and sufficient. Choose ordinary, earn heat. I told her we were trying. She sent a heart that looked like it had already paid rent. We named the plant, not mercy, not forgive, tempo. It leaned on schedule toward whatever light we chose, reminding us that pace is a form of loyalty. The frame came back to life with modesty. It showed Leela reading on a Tuesday with her feet on my thigh, and me burning onions in a way you can't photograph without smelling, and a porch that was ours only because nobody would pay to shoot there. It did not show the lake at Pine Ridge. Maybe we deleted it. Maybe it wasn't uploaded. Maybe the story had decided to stay where it happened. Last night, while the water bullied the pasta and the apartment practiced being a house, Leela slipped behind me and slid her hands under my shirt, palms warm on my stomach with the simple authority of someone who plans to keep their access current. We swayed without music. The frame, for once, chose to be boring. It showed a picture of our sink. The dish rack gleamed with dumb pride. My eyes stung for reasons that would give a poet ideas and a sensible person hope. Leela kissed my neck and said, "This part," and I said, "Yes," and we let the room be the witness the frame could never be.